So growing up, my mom and I watched a lot of romantic comedies together. To be fair, we watched both romantic comedies and thrillers. Because there's nothing more exciting than two people falling in love and serial killers in your house. Equal amounts of adrenaline rush. So on Friday nights, we would head over to Blockbuster. I know, I'm old school. Blockbusters were still a thing when I was in high school. And if you caught that, clearly I didn't have a social life in high school either because this was Friday night. My mom and I would troll up and down the aisles to find the thrill of love and terror. And my mom has this really bad memory. So invariably, she would pick out a rom-com that we had already seen, convinced that she had never heard of this particular love story before. Mom, we watched that one 2 weeks ago. We've already seen it. No, we haven't. This doesn't look familiar at all. Mom, trust me, we've already seen that. No, we haven't, she would declare. I would remember. So we would rent it because my mom is very sure of her memory. And then we would get home, pop it in the DVD player, and within 5 minutes, she'd be like, wait a minute, I've already seen this. Yes, Mom, I know. I told you we'd already seen it. We must have watched like the first 10 minutes of the 2006 rom-coms like 20 times each. It was ridiculous. But really, I shouldn't give her such a hard time. Because when you've seen one romantic comedy, haven't you seen them all? It's no wonder she couldn't keep them straight. They're the same story on repeat, which makes them really nice to watch because they're so predictable. Guy meets girl. Girl is clumsy, but cute. Guy is incorrigible, but handsome. They hate each other. They have to spend time together for some weird reason. They start to like each other. A terrible misunderstanding occurs that could be easily solved by talking to each other, but they don't do that. Time apart, pining, a grand gesture on the side of one party or the other, and then they are madly in love with each other. They swear their undying love, and of course, at the end, they get married and live happily ever after. Sorry, I just ruined all rom-coms for you. Now, it's always curious to me. Well, I guess there are many curious things about romantic comedies, that strange genre of twisted love stories. But one of the curious things to me was that rom-coms always end at the wedding. The story, the drama, the interesting stuff is all of the getting together, the dating, the pursuit, the misunderstandings, the romance. The end of the story is marriage. The credits is the marriage. The nothingness of the end of the movie is marriage. Apparently, there's nothing interesting or exciting to present about marriage, aside from the blasé, and they lived happily ever after. Is that all that marriage is? One line? Is decades of life together, of living together, of loving together not worth more comment than 6 words? Intellectually, I know that obviously that's not true. That after decades of growing up on Disney, on princesses and princes, on love stories, on rom-coms, on Twilight, on Pinterest, my subliminal understanding of marriage was essentially that one-liner. And they lived happily ever after. Now, is that your guys' unconscious expectation about marriage too? It's okay if it is right now. It's very hard to come away from our culture and the saturation of that message with a different idea about marriage. And even if you've had terrible examples of marriage around you, like your parents fighting all the time, your parents divorcing, friends getting married and divorced, marriages falling apart with infidelity or cheating or falling out of love, we still tend to believe that true love, that the right one will still give us that happily ever after. Because that's what marriage is. Happily ever after. Is that all that marriage is? Is marriage just this promise of unending happiness? Is being happy the only point of being married? And if I get married, is there now nothing significant about the rest of my life except for the fact that I'm happy? Can the rest of my life be summed up in 6 words suitable for a credit roll? Have I already passed all the good stuff worthy of making a movie about? I don't think so. But that's what we're unconsciously told. And this happily ever after creates really dangerous messages because not only does it set up a false description of marriage and reduce it to something that is complex and beautiful and deep to a one-liner, but it also generates other tangential falsehoods like Well, I never hear, and she was single and lived happily ever after. Does this mean that the only way I can be happy in life is to get married? Or even other really dangerous messages like, well, I'm married and I'm not happy, so maybe I should get out and find a different marriage that will make me happy. Marriage is so much deeper than happily ever after. This surface level picture of marriage is so dangerous, and it undermines the whole purpose and point of marriage. Marriage is deeper. Marriage is more complex. Marriage is more profound and significant and weighty than a one-liner about happiness. But you have to go deeper to get that. And sometimes it's hard to commit to going deep. Deeper can be uncomfortable and scary. It's often unknown and not like anything you've ever experienced before. It's easy to know what happy feels like and to aspire to that. But deep love, I'm not sure I've experienced that before, and I don't know how to get there. Going deeper can seem scary sometimes when you're on the surface, but there's this whole world of wonder and beauty and mystery in the deep. And marriage is one of the few relationships in which we get to explore that in a unique way. So let's take the plunge beneath the surface of "And They Lived Happily Ever After" and discover the unique, deep love that can be found in marriage and how this deep love points us to the deep love of our first lover, God. All right, so if marriage is meant to be so much more than just happily ever after, what is the point of marriage? If my unending state of happiness isn't the goal, what's the goal? What does marriage accomplish if it isn't securing my feelings of well-being for the rest of my life? Well, ultimately, the point of marriage isn't any different than any other relationship in which we love people, whether that's in singleness, dating, parenting, or marriage. The point of marriage is to point back to Him who loved us first. Okay, Megan, this seems like a weird goal to me. That doesn't jive with what I know about marriage. I don't ever remember people falling in love and getting married in order to point back to God. Marriage seems to be about two people's love for each other, right? Not for God? Well, in some ways, yes, but the Bible tells us that God is love. And so each relationship in which we love, we ultimately are pointing back to God because God is love. These are different relational states that we can be in. Each reveals a different facet of the incredible, boundless, mysterious love of God. God's love is so wide and so deep and so high and so low that no single relationship could fully express the thousands of angles of His love. But we get glimpses and snapshots of aspects of His love and the unique and varied ways in which we love other people. For instance, let's take singleness, like Megan talked about 2 weeks ago. Singleness highlights the breadth and fullness of God's love. As single people find sufficiency and wholeness in God and God alone, and love a wide variety and breadth of people in their lives. Singleness reveals how full and satisfying God's love is, and singleness reveals how wide and all-encompassing God's love is, because God's love isn't limited to a single person. He offers love to everyone. Singleness, by its uniqueness and special way of loving and relating, points to these aspects of God's love in a unique way. Dating, like Brad talked about last week, another way that we can love others. Dating highlights the passionate pursuit of God's love. God pursues us with His love and pursues us with His love, so much so that He becomes a man, the divine and fleshed, who lives among His beloved and then lays down His life for His beloved so He can be with her. Dating, by its uniqueness and special way of loving and relating, points to these aspects of God's love in a unique way. Just like singleness and dating highlight differing and important and critical aspects of God's love, marriage too highlights another aspect of God's love and reveals it to the world. Marriage highlights the depth of God's love due to its own unique way of loving and relating. But we're not going to dive into that quite yet. Before we look at how marriage highlights the depth of God's love, I want to impress on you guys even further how important it is that no matter which relational state you find yourself in, that it matters critically that you do it well. You are revealing God's love to the world. You are highlighting God's love for humanity by how you live out your relational state. When you fail to do singleness well, when you fail to do dating well, when you fail to do marriage well, when you fail to do parenting well, you are diminishing your testimony of God's love to the world. Jesus reminds us in the Gospel of John that it is how we love that will reveal God to the world. So now I'm giving you a new commandment: love each other. Just as I have loved you, you should love each other. Your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples. It's not the words we say. It's not the bumper stickers on our car. It's not how often we go to church, how much you read your Bible. It's how we love that proves to the world that we belong to Jesus and that he is worth following. You love in the relational state that you're in, and that unique chance that you have to show your facet of God's love to the world is crucial. 1 John tells us this: no one has ever seen God. But if we love each other, God's love lives in us, and his love is brought to full expression in us. Isn't that crazy? No one can see God, but by loving each other, we make God tangible and visible to the world. That's crazy to me. And the world is watching us. Proverbs 3 tells you, let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you'll win favor and a good name in the sight of God and man. Let love and faithfulness never leave you, because your love is what gets noticed by God and man. People pay attention to how you live and love. Whether you're single, whether you're dating, whether you're married, or whether you're parenting. Your loudest gospel message to the world is the love that you live out in your current relational state. When you love well, that love points straight back to God because God is love. And love done well is winsome, it's inviting, it's compelling because it is saturated with God, and people are yearning for and longing for their Creator and his love. It matters how we do singleness or dating or marriage or parenting, because how we choose to love others in the relational state we're in will either reveal God to the world or it will be silent, pretending that God's love doesn't actually exist. Let's be people who point to God with our lives and love, using the unique situation that we're in to reveal the many facets of his life-giving, satisfying, that got really loud, overwhelming, never-ending love. All right, so I spent a long time trying to hammer that in, that this matters, that this is critical. So let's look more deeply at the relational state of marriage. Now, because marriage is so highly idolized in our culture, I want to take another time to make a little caveat that marriage is in no way more superior or more revealing of God's love than any other relational state. It's just different. It has unique ways of reflecting portions of God's love, just like singleness has unique ways, and dating has unique ways, and parenting has unique ways that are inherent to those situations. Marriage's reflection of God's love is not all-encompassing. It is not the full picture. And we lack without every other relational state also revealing other angles and understandings of God's love. We miss things if we only see love in marriage. If you're single, do single well. If you're dating, do dating well. If you're married, do married well, because they are all vital and critical reflections of God's love, and we miss what God's love looks like without all of these. Okay, my 2 caveats are done. So, how does marriage reveal the depth of God's love? First, you choose to go deep. Okay, what does that mean? So in popular understandings of love, there's this sense of falling in and out of love. Love is something that just happens to you, that you can't control, like the weather, or your feelings about buffalo chicken dip. You either love it or you hate it, and you can't really control how you feel about it, no matter how much you try and choke it down for the sake of your husband who loves it. Love is this intense feeling, it's butterflies, this overwhelming sense of you're the one, I can't live without you. It's difficult to control, and you fall in and out of it whether you want to or not. Now, this popular conception of love is not love. Sorry to burst your bubble. This head over heels, falling in love, I can't live without you feeling is actually called infatuation, and it's not anything like love. Scientists have studied this phenomenon of infatuation, which many people call falling in love, and they have found that these intense feelings of love have a lifespan of about 18 months to 2 years. So if you think in your head of some people you know, you might think of, I know a serial dater in my life. There's this series of 1.5 to 2-year relationships, after which the person falls out of love and moves on to the next person that they've fallen in love with. This person is not in love, nor have they ever been in love. This person is infatuated and addicted to the feelings of infatuation. True love is not a feeling. If it was, we'd be screwed, because we can't control the feelings that arise in our bodies. Now, we can recognize those feelings once they can happen. We can determine where they come from, what they point to. We can choose what to do with those feelings and how to act or not act in response to them. But we can't ultimately control the raw feelings that we have. So this is super dangerous if love is a feeling, because that means that I have no control over whether or not I stay in love with my husband. One day I'm in love with him, and the next day I'm not. And I guess that's the end of the story. Because if love is a feeling, there's nothing I can do to just feel in love. Now, people use this line of logic to justify many unloving behaviors, such as having affairs or ending marriages that they've made lifelong vows to. And if love is a feeling, that's totally understandable, because you can't help that you've fallen out of love with your spouse and fallen in love with your coworker Stu. And you can't be expected to stay married to someone that you don't love anymore. But love is not a feeling. Love is a choice. You choose to go deep. You choose to love your spouse today and tomorrow and the day after that until one of you dies. It doesn't matter how you feel, because love isn't a feeling. Love is a choice. And you love your spouse by choosing to act out your love even when the feelings of infatuation aren't there anymore. And marriage provides a unique context for this choice to surface, because it's one of the few relationships that you've committed to a person for your whole life, and there's no way out of it. Not to make marriage sound like a trap or anything. In marriage, you make a vow to one person that you will love them forever. Forever is a long time. Forever has to weather seasons and storms and highs and lows and feelings and not feelings. And this commitment of forever forces us to choose love, because feelings just aren't enough to stand on. This love of choice is unshakable. This love of choice is sure. A love based on feelings will always be fickle and changing, because you can't control your feelings, but you can control your choices. You have complete power over what you choose to do or to not do. And you can always choose to love and keep loving even when you don't feel like it. Marriage reveals the depth of God's love, because when you choose to go deep, you reveal how God chooses us over and over with a love that is steadfast and sure and unwavering. God's love for you and for me is not fickle or changing like shifting shadows and feelings, but his love stands the test of 1,000 generations, because he chooses to love you and me no matter the feelings. In the book of Isaiah, God tells us this: though the mountains be shaken and the hills be removed, yet my unfailing love for you will not be shaken, nor my covenant of peace be removed. The book of Song of Songs, which tells the love story of 2 people in the Bible, also points to the nature of God's true love, a love that weathers and is solid and is not based on things that change or are uncontrollable like feelings. Place me like a seal over your heart, like a seal on your arm, for love is as strong as death. Many waters cannot quench love. Rivers cannot wash it away. Because you choose to go deep, rather than basing your love on feelings or the moment, you can build a love that is anchored on something deeper than shifting feelings or situations. And this rooted, steadfast, sure love points straight back to God and his rooted, steadfast, sure love for you. So we reveal the depth of God's love in marriage by choosing to go deep. But we also reveal the depth of God's love in marriage by committing to go deep. So what's the difference? Okay, let me explain. I don't know if you guys know this, but the deep parts of the ocean are scary. There's a reason that I refuse to go more than knee deep into the ocean, because there are things that swim in there that I don't want anywhere near any part of my body. Have you ever seen Finding Nemo? This movie is an excellent case study of why the deep is scary. Exhibit A, Exhibit B, Exhibit C. Terrifying stuff lives in the deep. Now, I doubt that there's a literal shark or terrifying anglerfish lurking in the depths of your marriage. There may be, I don't know who you're married to. But the point is that when we go deep with someone, we will discover the not so pretty things about them. Their personal barracudas, their great white sharks, their terrifying bottom-dwelling anglerfish. When my husband Ryan first met me, I was very bright and shiny. I was completely sharkless. He saw only how hilariously funny I am, my incredible wit and smarts. I only wore my cute butt jeans, and I definitely did my hair. I was gracious and not grumpy, even when he kept me up until 4 o'clock in the morning. A bright, shiny star was I, a frolicking dolphin, if you will. I don't think that I'm the only one who has experienced this, because we often do this when we first meet someone, when we're first getting to know them. We put our best foot forward, whether it's your right or your left. You show off all that's awesome and amazing about you. You're on your best behavior. You share flattering stories. You're the best version of yourself. Now, we're probably not trying to be disingenuous, but the surface level frolicking dolphins is the first thing you see at the ocean. It makes you think, wow, the ocean's amazing. It takes time and commitment to start sinking deeper beneath the waves and discovering that there are great white sharks and there are bottom-dwelling anglerfish in there too. For instance, my sweet husband had to discover that I picked my nose. I held it back at the beginning of our relationship, even the beginning of our marriage, demurely hiding in the bathroom. But now that we're 6 years in, it's boogers everywhere, no restraint. He had to discover other sharks and anglerfish about me, such as that I can be really petty and mean, that I don't always have kind things to say, that sometimes I'm lazy and I'm self-centered. Over the course of our marriage, he has gotten to know the worst parts of me that I wasn't even aware were there, like how angry I get at our son and how uncontrollable and ugly that anger is. The surprising twisted shame that was lurking beneath the surface of my life until I got pregnant with Aiden and it reared its ugly head. Are parts of myself that I couldn't have even verbalized if I tried. Because marriage is a long-term commitment where you are around each other forever, your guards come down, the not so pretty parts surface, and you get to know the depths of your one person really, really well, anglerfish and all. Our sin and our brokenness are not something that we like to bring to the table. I'd like to pretend that I am worthy of my husband's love, that he loves me because I am so lovable and awesome and worth loving. But what is amazing about marriage is that he knows the parts of me that are not lovable, and he commits to loving me anyway, despite all of my great white sharks and bottom-dwelling anglerfish. I think a lot of us think love is a bargain, that if we're good enough or deserving enough, someone will give us love in exchange. And as long as we keep earning that love and being good enough, it won't be taken away from us. But true love, the love of God, is not earned or deserved or dependent on how good you are. It is given despite how broken and sinful and undeserving we are. When we commit to love in marriage despite the brokenness and ugliness and the depths of the one that we're committed to, we see a small flash of God's love for us despite our brokenness and ugliness. Romans 5:8 tells us, but God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. God didn't wait until you stopped sinning to die for you. God didn't wait until you had your act together and had done enough good things to die for you. God didn't wait until you had proved that you would love him back, that you would reciprocate his act of generosity for you. God died for you while you were still a sinner in the midst of your mess with no strings or conditions. He loves you for you, exactly as you are, even with every great white shark and bottom-dwelling anglerfish in your life. He knows your depths and he is not surprised by what he finds there. and he is still committed to you and thinks you're wonderful. Nothing can separate us from God's love, not even our own ugliness or the scary parts that we hide. Paul continues in Romans, and I am convinced that nothing can ever separate us from God's love. Neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither our fears for today nor our worries about our tomorrow. Not even the powers of hell can separate us from God's love. No power in the sky above or in the earth below, indeed nothing in all of creation, will ever be able to separate us from the love of God that is revealed in Christ Jesus our Lord. Nothing you ever do or won't do, nothing you've ever done or may do can separate you from God's love, because God doesn't love you based on your deserving it. He loves you regardless of you not deserving it even a little bit. It is this generous, no strings attached, love you no matter what aspect of love that we commit to expressing in marriage as we get to know the depths of our spouse and love them despite what we find there. This is the kind of love that we need. This is the kind of love that we crave because we're not perfect. And we need someone to love us not because we're perfect, but as ourselves, flawed and broken. So in marriage, we reveal the depth of God's love by choosing to go deep despite the feelings. And we reveal the depth of God's love by committing to go deep despite the brokenness. These are profound ways to reflect God's deep love to the world and point back to the truth of his love for you and for me. Unfortunately, though, even on our best days of choosing and committing, our love for each other is only a dim reflection of God's love, because we're honestly not that great at loving to the depth that he does. I'm not good at choosing to love Ryan when I feel tired or cranky. I'm not good at committing to love Ryan when I feel like he messed up and doesn't deserve my love. I'm not good at choosing to love Ryan when I'm feeling depressed or anxious. I'm not good at committing to love Ryan when he's the worst version of himself. My love is ultimately more fickle and stingy than God's. But God knows this. He is not surprised or ashamed of me. He wasn't expecting me to be perfect in my love. And instead, he gently tells me how I can go deeper. Jesus tells me, yes, I am the vine, you are the branches. Those who remain in me and I in them will produce much fruit, for apart from me, you can do nothing. I have loved you even as the Father has loved me. Remain in my love. Jesus doesn't expect me to choose love on my own power. He tells me explicitly that I can't do it without him. If I am to choose love and to commit to love in the way that God chooses to love and commit to me, I have to remain connected and centered on Jesus' love. And Paul recognizes this truth too. He tells the Thessalonians, may the Lord make your love increase and overflow for each other. He doesn't say, make your love increase and overflow for each other. He says, may the Lord make your love increase and overflow for each other. God is the one who increases and overflows our love, not us. We have to abide in him and his love in order to love others in the way that he does, with steadfastness, sureness, and undeserved generosity. When you find yourself struggling to go deeper in your love, make sure that you are anchored in him who loved you first, because apart from him, you can do nothing. And as we live in God, our love grows more perfect. There's one more way that I think it is important to look at that demonstrates how marriage reveals God's love. And to help us understand this last way, my husband Ryan filmed a short testimony to share with you. He is not here right now. He's in Cuba serving. But before he left, he filmed this. And my husband Ryan has been married for 14 years, but only 6 of them have been to me. Before he was married to me, he was married to someone else. And he wanted to share a little bit of his story to illustrate this last point about God's love for you.
9 years ago, I celebrated my 30th birthday in Haiti. We were there to help with some earthquake relief, as there had been an earthquake that had devastated that island country. We were there with a bunch of people from Damascus Road and a group from ASU Polytechnic over spring break, much like I'm in Cuba right now. What I didn't realize was that while I was celebrating my birthday in Haiti and helping people in need, my ex-wife was not celebrating my birthday, nor longing for me to return, but rather enjoying an affair that had been going on for months. Now, I didn't find out about this affair until the fall, and when I discovered it, I was devastated. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I wanted to throw up all the time. I lost 30 pounds not because of some awesome diet, but because I was so emotionally distressed that my marriage was falling apart. I did everything I could to pursue my ex-wife, to offer her forgiveness, to try and rebuild our relationship, to admit the areas in our marriage that I was at fault at, which were many. And the whole time she was very clear that she was not interested in being married to me. She told me that she'd learned what true love was and that she had not loved me for a long time. This is not what you imagine your wife telling you years later on your wedding day. And I learned a lot of things through the process, but one of the main things was that no matter how much I wanted our marriage to work, I couldn't force her to love me or to choose me or to choose our marriage. That it takes two to make a marriage. And that while I wanted to stay married and I wanted to work it out and I was hopeful that our relationship could be a trophy to God's grace that says no matter our brokenness, we will choose each other and we will choose forgiveness and we will figure it out together. There was no opportunity to rebuild trust or to restore the relationship. While I've forgiven her personally, that forgiveness did not result in reconciliation of our relationship or a continuation of our marriage. Because you can't force someone to go deep. You can offer it, you can pursue someone with your love, but they have to choose to join you in the deep, committed love of marriage. Marriage isn't just one person, it's two people. And my first marriage ended because only one of us was interested in remaining married to the other. So choose each other again and again and again, even when it's hard. I'm thankful that is the sort of marriage I enjoy now with Megan. I love you all and can't wait to be back. See you soon. Bye.
So, in a really painful and vulnerable way, marriage also reveals that you can only go deep together. It takes two to make a marriage, and unless both parties are choosing it, there's nothing you can do to deepen the relationship. True love is vulnerable and open to rejection because you can't force another person to love you back. True love like this opens you up to the potential of incredible heartache and pain, but it is the only way that true love can actually exist. Because if love is not a free choice on part of both parties, it isn't love. In an incredible, humble, and painful way, this is how God loves us. John 3:16 tells us, "For this is how God loved the world. He gave his one and only Son so that everyone who believes in him will not perish, but have eternal life." This is how God loved you. He gave his one and only Son, his own self in the flesh, to die for you, knowing full well that you may never love him back. Now, this verse would be totally different if it just said, "so that everyone will not perish." But it doesn't. It only says everyone who believes in him, which means that not everyone reciprocates God's offer of love. God's love lays everything on the line to love you and to love me, but this was a love that did not have to be reciprocated. No matter how much God loves you and pursues you and satisfies you and longs for you, he will never force you to love him back. This is true love, a love that is unforced, that is vulnerable and open to rejection, a love that acknowledges that you go deep together. What an incredibly humble way to love. I am so humbled to be loved by a God who loves like this, who placed himself in a position of vulnerability and demonstrated true love to me by not making me choose him back. You go deep together, and in our relationship with God, the almighty creator of the universe, the ultimate lover and satisfier of your soul, you can only go deep together. God is already there. He is ready and waiting. He is offering deep love to you and to me, but we have to choose whether or not we will accept his invitation of love and go deep with him. Are you ready to go deep? In your relationship with God, in your relationship with others, are you ready to choose love despite your feelings? To commit to love despite the brokenness? To open yourself up to the potential pain and rejection of real love by offering love without a guarantee of reciprocation? Are you ready to say yes to God's invitation of deep love to you? Choose to go deep. Commit to go deep. Go deep together.